Now it's fuck. Now it's recording. I don't want to swear this early in it, but the button's right here. It's not over here. But when you push this button where it's at, it doesn't want to start. Recording in progress. I know. I didn't know that because I was too busy pushing about where the stupid record button was. I was happy that the record button was right where it's supposed to be, not over here. Thank you, not under the ellipsis or the umlauts or whatever the hell they're called over here. The stupid little buttons over here.
Oh, you got me shaking my room here. Hello, everybody.
Hi. Here we are. I gotta pop out those spirits.
See, I'm glad that we start these things with you rambling off on these tirades instead of me.
So it puts you in a better mood.
Yeah.
So actually, getting this stuff off my chest like that actually puts me in a pretty good mood.
Right. So welcome to In the Midst of the Shadows. For those of you who haven't been here before, welcome. And those of you who don't like us, well, we don't care.
Then why don't you come back?
Right.
Oh, you're here to mock and torment us. Okay, we don't care.
I'm good with it. Go ahead.
Old enough to not give a shit.
Yep.
We're far enough into the video where I can say that.
Yep. So today, after our last podcast, Jason and I what are we gonna talk about? I'm like, well, we need to get back to spooky stuff. So we just picked a random word, and the random word I picked was Alaska.
Uh-huh.
So that being said, I'm one of your hosts, Craig, and this is our other host.
I am Jason.
There we go. So do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to talk about this quaint little village called Portlock, and we're going to travel all the way back in time.
Ooh, I like traveling in time.
Yeah, I do
just
too.
Like, wait, is this like a Back to the Future thing, or is this like a Quantum Leap thing, or is this like a Endgame thing?
Time Bandits.
Better.
We're just going to hop through time stealing shit.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to this back to 1787, where this British naval captain, Nathaniel Portlock, landed in Alaska. And it was right on the Chatham Bay, and he settled in this little area. Actually, he actually landed elsewhere, but people are claiming he landed here, and they called the town Portlock. So a town built up here, and in this town there was.
Okay. I don't want to. Okay, I love how little towns pop up like that. It's like, we'll just set up camp. Hey, some more people coming here. You can set up camp. Oh, you're building a brothel. You're building a bar. Hey, you know what? We need a post office. Oh, now we have a town. What are we gonna name it?
Right. Exactly. And so they had this quaint little village, and the fish were plentiful. So the next best step was to, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, open a cannery.
Oh, okay.
So that way we can keep our fish for years in a can and not get sick when we eat it.
That's a good idea.
Salmonella, anyone?
Salmonella amongst friends.
So this town was thriving, and through the 1800s did really well. It flourished. The Russian Aleuts, which was the native tribe that had settled in Alaska, were in the area too, and so they moved into the town. So you had this melting pot, if you will.
I like melting pot.
So they're all, hey, we're doing good. And then in 1910, they're like, well, there's a lot of people here. We need a post office. It's now a town.
There you go.
So a little prelude that you had there. I like that. So everything's going good. And until right around 1900. 1900, shit went south.
Okay.
So there's a story of a man who is a logger out in the woods and cutting wood as loggers do.
I'm glad that he's out in the woods cutting
Yeah,
wood, like a
yeah.
woodchuck if he could cut wood.
So a couple days go by, he doesn't come home. So
Oh,
they go looking for him, and they find him.
oh, okay.
They find his body dead.
Oh, I was happy for a minute. They found him. No.
Yeah, but and it was really weird because he was lying face down on the ground, dead, big wound in the back of his head, and then they're searching around for what did it, and there was this giant piece of logging equipment that no human being could pick up,
Hmm.
blood all over it,
Okay.
10 feet away from him.
10 feet, but nobody can pick it
Yes,
up.
right. So I'm going to do a little debunking. I've heard some people in the medical field talk about like a soccer game where this guy got hit in the head
Mm-hmm.
and he just kind of spiraled around and then and then dropped dead 15, 20 feet away from where the accident happened.
Okay.
The guy could have slipped, hit his head, and then, but it's odd that it being in the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
So a year later, this hunting group goes out. And can you guess what they're hunting?
Sasquatch?
No, sheep.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they're hunting sheep.
Like bighorn?
I guess so.
I hope so.
I do too. So there's like 17 of these guys, and none of them come back.
Oh,
And then
none of them come back.
No, but then all of a sudden, a mutilated body washes up the river that goes into the bay there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the hunters. So they sent out a search party, and in the swamp marshland, they found all 15 or the 16 other bodies.
Okay.
So there was also a rumor about a lady in a black dress that was out in the woods who would appear and just start wailing like a banshee.
Like a banshee. Okay.
Yep.
You're a little faster saying than I was.
Yep. And then there is one person that was there that is still alive. I cannot remember her name. It's something like Cal, and makes me think of Helen Keller, but it's not Helen Keller.
Okay.
But anyways, she tells stories of the Port Chatham Hairyman, which Port Chatham is the area where the bay.
Okay.
That's the Chatham Bay, but it's Portlock's town.
You said hairy man.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to throw this out there that now we have added like what our 75th bipedal hairy cryptid
Yes.
in the mix, because we've talked about the skunk ape, dog man from Michigan. We talked about, the werewolves. We talked about, the Yetis, the abominable snowman, the big feet, the Sasquatch.
Wendigo.
Yeah. We okay.
Skinwalker.
So here's another one. I'm sorry. I got onto that little tangent there. Say the name of it again.
Port Chatham Hairyman.
Perfect. Love it.
All right. So, okay, in all of our talks about these bipedal hairy creatures, how many times have we talked about them killing people?
Not one.
Yeah, but these people claim this girl claims that this hairy man was killing all these people. So, in 1949, the whole town just up and left.
Okay. Like the whole town.
The whole town had
So it
enough
was
of
a
it.
vibrant, growing town, and now it's ghost.
Well, in 1905, workers abandoned the cannery because of mysterious activity that scared them off, like the Port Chatham Hairyman.
Uh-huh.
And the cannery closed down because nobody would work it, and they just up and left because they're. Granted, that was 1905. This is 1949, so this is 44 years afterwards.
Oh, okay.
That everybody just abandoned it.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody leaves town except for the postmaster because he can't leave his post.
True. He's appointed.
Until they close down his post, which happened a year later.
So he's in town alone for a year.
Yep. Basically, he's walking around to houses grabbing stuff that he can mail to people because he's bored.
Okay.
But I'm sitting there going, oh, a year in a town by myself, that would be heaven.
It would be interesting. I mean, I say all the time, I miss COVID.
Yeah, I do too. I like solitary
I
confinement.
I didn't realize how much I would
Yeah.
until it was gone.
Right. Yeah, because I gotta say my anxiety level cranked right up afterwards. So this story, if you will, is a story that it's an urban legend, basically. It's been passed down through all these people. But the reality of the matter is, in the 40s, Alaska built a highway that ran like it was like 10 miles from this town. So there's no access road into this town. And when you build highways and people can travel across land, you don't really need ports so much.
Not as much, no.
I mean, you do, but they're in different areas where the highway goes to.
Yes, usually.
That's where you're going to ship shit to. So, I got to go with, because I'm going to find the person who debunked this real quick. Because, what's his name? Brian Dunning. So there's an article by Brian Dunning on this. It's Skeptoid podcast number 772 from 2021. And he basically just debunked everything in this thing. And the Alouettes called the Hairyman the Nantinuk, which means stealer of people.
Okay.
So, I mean, I look at it like this. I mean, it'd be cool if this was true, but I mean, not really, because I like Bigfoot not killing people.
I do too. To me, it almost seems like a Scooby-Doo mystery.
Yep. If it
Where
wasn't for you damn kids, I would have gotten away with it.
The town would be empty if we would have got away with it if it wasn't for this, these meddling highway over here.
Right. So that sums up Portlock, Alaska. Now, I'm going to say that, I mean, I watch videos of people camping out in the woods in the winter by themselves in like Canada and the UP, and I'm like, I could do it. Spend like, or like there was a guy and his wife that, the river that feeds into the Great Lakes.
Sure.
Okay, from the ocean.
Are you talking about like St. Lawrence?
Yes, but there's a lake and another Nippening or something like that.
Okay.
Which they call the mother of the Great Lakes.
Okay.
It's in Ontario and it feeds into the St. Lawrence and all that stuff.
Okay.
So, but this couple went on a 22-day canoe trip, going through the islands and stuff of that.
Oh wow!
And camping.
Nice.
Camps and did like a 400-kilometer trek. I'm like, that would be awesome. I would love it.
That'd be I just wish I had the time to be able to get away from, all requirement, all responsibilities,
Well, and the thing too is like the guy that did that with his wife, he did a solo one in this, like the month before, that was like a 7 or 10-day one. And like he gets to this little island and he's on there, and all of a sudden a bear swims across to another island. And then a few minutes later swims back, and now he's like a little bit on edge, but it's a bear, it's gonna stay away, blah blah blah. The next day he'd gone to a different island, and these fishermen approached him, and he was more put off by the people than he was the bear. Because you're out there expecting solitude.
Yeah.
So, but it's cool because they did see a caribou at one point too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. Anyways, so that sums up Portlock, Alaska, and a little side story. The YouTube channel, if anybody's interested, is the Lost Lakes.
Okay. Lost Lakes. We'll put that right here.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. Like I said, it kind of sounded like a Scooby-Doo mystery there. It's like all the town disappeared except for the master.
Right.
Because he couldn't leave. I couldn't leave.
I mean, if you were worried about a hairy man out there and you're there for a year by yourself, I probably would have left. Who would have known?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had telephones back then.
They did. They did, but it's all the way up in Alaska. It's like, who's going to check on him?
Right.
Sign on the door says out to lunch.
Right.
because you come back 3 weeks later.
Right. That's how I would have handled it. I'm gonna
Right.
come back to this town once a week.
Right? You move closer to the freeway.
Right.
You
All
know,
right, Jason,
you
what do
don't have
you
to
got?
live in the town. You could commute to the town.
Right.
Okay. So all right. So my first thoughts about Alaska was one thing I've always been fascinated by about Alaska is the fact that like Burrow, Alaska, all the way at the top of Alaska has like this period of darkness. It's like weeks without the sun. They made a movie where the vampires come in and attack the town called 30 Days a Night. It's a great vampire movie.
It really is.
But it's like, I always, I wanted to. My first thought was do something. There's got to be spooky shit up in Burrow. It was like I would love to visit there sometime. Maybe when it's all sunlight all the time, because I
Right.
don't want to be trapped there.
Right.
As if there's no drinking during the day, the darkness, and come on.
Right.
Anyway, so I decided, you know what, we're gonna go a completely opposite direction, and we wanted to go spooky, but I kind of wanted to be realistic about it. And Alaska has had two, not one, but two of the most interesting serial killers of all time.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Uh,
Did that
they're
sound forced? It was.
What's that?
So did that sound forced? It was.
Very good, very well played, sir. Now the reason that these guys are, I won't say that they're not as captivating as like a Bundy story, or not as memorable as a Jeffrey Dahmer story. A lot of people probably haven't heard of either of these two people, but their motive and their operations were way different than any other typical serial killer. You get like the Green River Killer. He ran up and down, picked up prostitutes, killed them, dumped them, and a lot of times in the same exact spot. You had the Night Stalker would go through people's windows and blah blah blah. It's like most of them are pretty, I want to say, standard. It's like Gacy picked up young boys, took them back to his house, killed them, yada yada yada. It's like they're horrific stories, but they're not as fantastic. And I use that as fantastic, meaning the ways that these people operated were light years ahead of what others did. I'm not saying that people are interesting at all, because, well, I don't want to give. I'm not one of those people that like revere serial killers or think they're amazing or anything like that. But it is dark, it's macabre, and I want to go into it.
Right. Let's do it.
Okay, the first one. Have you ever heard of Robert Christian Bose Hansen, otherwise known as Robert Hansen?
No.
Okay. Robert Hansen was a serial killer that lived in he was born in 1939. He lived in around the Anchorage, Alaska area for a long, long time. He ended up dying in 2014 of natural causes at age of 75. But I'm going to kind of be quick with these. I'm not going to get into all the cases and everything. I'm just going to kind of go over what they did so I can get both of them here in a reasonable amount of time. But I do encourage you to go look them up. There's been movies made about this first one and not the next one, but there will be eventually about the second one. Robert Hansen lived around the Anchorage area, and what he would do was he would, like the Green River Killer I just mentioned, he would pick up prostitutes. He would take them back to his house, and after he would pay them to do their thing, he would rape them again, kidnap them, throw them in a plane, fly out into the middle of nowhere, and tell them to run.
What was the time frame?
That all this happened. This is begun around 1972.
Okay. All right.
And the last one, I believe, was in the early 80s. 84 was the last one.
Okay.
So this guy would he would kidnap, rape, transport on an airplane, kick them out into the wilderness, and then hunt them with a hunting rifle. He, so it's like just like if you've ever seen Surviving the Game with Ice-T back in the day, it's exactly Ice-T played a homeless man who got
Right.
picked up and they was offered this job, get put on a plane, they kicked him out, and then Rutger Hauer hunted him. I think it was Rutger Hauer. I could be wrong on that one, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, but this man would do this, and he basically would just, you know, he would hunt them for sport, and he was eventually caught the last one. His last one, it was a 20-year-old that he offered money for photographs, but she was uh, found that 1.5 miles from this thing called Old Nick Bridge in April 29th of 1984. That was the last known incident. But they do believe that he had 17 victims ranging from the age of 16 to 41. Uh, he was arrested on charged with assault, kidnapping, multiple weapons offenses, theft, insurance fraud. There's a bunch of other stuff. His first crime, he burnt down a bus barn for a school district.
Okay.
So he was not a very likable person in the community anyway. So people didn't really like the guy. But he was eventually caught, pled guilty to 17 murders. They think there may have been more, but they only knew of 5 at the time. 12 of which he confessed to. He showed them where the bodies were, which 12 of them were unknown to the investigators. And then ultimately he was sentenced to 461 years in prison without the possibility of parole, and he was taken down to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, to serve out his time. So he did not. In 1988, he returned to uh, Alaska briefly. He was imprisoned at Spring Creek Correctional Center until he finally passed away in 2014.
So I got a couple questions for you.
Yeah,
What was his total death count?
17 proven, but it's
17 proven.
possible up to 20. There's one range says 21, another one says 37.
Okay. So let's look at some statistics.
Mm-hmm.
In 1970, the population of Anchorage, Alaska was 48,801.
Mm-hmm.
In 1980, it was 174,431. So he's doing this in the mid 70s with like 50,000, roughly 60,000 population. How many prostitutes are in that population?
Right, right, and where there's in that time frame that there's up to 37 of them can come up missing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's to me that's a bit of a I mean, it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there was a lot of prostitution in the 70s and 80s, and hey, if you can't get a job,
right.
get a job. Do the job.
So there were two. I was wrong. There's actually 2 movies that were made about this. There's one called Naked Fear 2007 that
Okay.
I've never seen or heard of this movie. The other one is on Netflix. It's called The Frozen Ground, and it stars John Cusack and Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
And then Vanessa Hudgens plays one of the victims that actually survived.
I think I might have seen. I might have watched Naked Fear, but I'm gonna look it up real quick to see.
So I did hear a comment that was about this. Actually, I don't remember where I heard it, but they say Nicolas Cage's performance was equivalent to phoning it in on a burner phone.
Mm.
So I guess the movie's pretty bad.
So Naked Fear came out in 2007.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't seen it. Nope, I don't think I have.
But also Law and Order Special Victims Unit did an episode of it in season 13. There was 2 episodes of Cold Case that were about them. Criminal Minds season 5 did an episode about this. There are 2 episodes of the show called Silent Witness, and then There was plenty of documentaries and stuff on it. There's tons of stuff on this guy. So we're gonna stop talking about Robert Hansen now.
Okay, who's the other guy?
The other one is a man by the name of Israel Keys.
I've heard of him.
Now this guy was interesting in the fact that he was actually born in Richmond, Utah, but he was ultimately caught in Alaska. So he came up in a really religious background. He was homeschooled. He went into the military. Um, I'm gonna skip a lot of his background. I'm just gonna go to the mind frame.
Talk about what he did.
So I'm not actually gonna talk about what he did, but I'm gonna talk about how he did it. And I don't really remember. I'm not going to throw out specifics. I'm going to throw generalizations just so we're not going to talk about specifically about the victims themselves. But what this guy would do he would fly to, say, from Anchorage, or he'd fly from Alaska. I don't think he lived in Anchorage. I think he lived in Juneau. Doesn't matter. He would fly from Alaska to like Arizona. He'd rent a car from Arizona, drive that rental car to Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, he would bury a kill bucket, a 5-gallon bucket full of all the tools, the masks, the gloves, the ropes, the bindings, everything that he needed to perform a kill, bury that, drive away. And then he would do it again. And he would set these kill kits hidden all over the country. They're not even sure how many of them are still out there because they never got a chance to actually get to that part. So, but what he would end up doing was he would fly to a city, drive hundreds, possibly 1,000 miles from where he landed, pick up one of his kill kits, and then find a victim, and then do his murder, and then backtrack, and then return the car and fly home. Well, he did this so much that none of his crimes were ever linked together. There's no possibility of linking this one to this one to this one to this one, because he had this network and he was willing to put in the time to do this. He was a contractor in Alaska, so he made his own schedule.
Right.
He dealt a lot in cash, so he didn't have to deal with a lot of. He didn't have a paper trail of his expenses because he could pay cash everywhere he went. So he wasn't using debit cards or credit cards as he's driving across the country and these things. He could fill up his car with the rental car with cash. So he was. I'd hate to use the word brilliant, but he was very resourceful on how he committed these crimes and not to get caught.
Well, I mean, you say you don't want to call him brilliant, but it is very thought out process that comes from an extreme analytical thinker, borderline brilliance for the plot.
Yeah,
not for the actions. The actions are atrocious.
Oh yeah. The end game is terrible. But I'm going to talk about how he got caught now. But for somebody who put together this kind of planning, this kind of attention to detail, he was still impulsive enough to just attack. Or plus, I forgot about it. He was also robbing banks at the same time. So he was dealing with cash that he had from being a contractor. Plus, he was using stolen money to fund all this stuff. And then he was at a those little drive-up coffee booths that are in parking lots. He pulled up to one of those. He tried to arrest, or he tried to rob from the place. He reached in, started getting with the cash register. Then ultimately, he ended up kidnapping the girl that was there, took her back to his house, put her in the shed that's out back, and then kept her, raped her, kept her there overnight. Now it's cold out. It's Alaska. And then went back inside. He's got a family. So he was doing all this, and then everybody was coming out saying that it's like, where's this girl? Where's this girl? Where's this girl? Now she's tied up in his shack because, well, where else do you put her? You put her in a mower, mowing shed out in your backyard.
Right.
Well, he ends up killing her, but he leaves her there and he takes her debit card, and then he decides to do one of his little trips, and he goes down to Arizona, and he's caught on tape trying to withdraw money from her account, and then he rents a car, and they track him as he's pulling money out of this out of ATMs with this. They track him into Texas, where he's ultimately stopped. They catch him, extradite him back to Alaska for trial. But actually, that was the second time he went down, because he ended up like taking pictures of this girl with her eyelids sewn open.
Oh Jesus!
After she's dead, with a newer newspaper, and they put out a ransom note for her. He did a lot of stupid stuff here in the end. That's how he ended up getting caught. What usually they do.
What was the time frame when he got caught?
It was like 2 weeks.
No, I mean the date.
Oh, it was
year.
This was 2012.
2012. So at that point, you would know that using somebody else's debit card, they're going to track you.
Yes.
So
and
he wanted
the camera on the machine.
Right. So he wanted to get caught.
Pretty much. So he gets caught, and then he ends up pretty much like what some serial killers do. He ended up calling he just everything. Says everything that he did, things that they didn't know about. Most of it sounded so sensational that they didn't at first they didn't think it was true.
Right.
The fact that he was naming all these different murders and how they happened around the country, and they're like, what the? So at one time he called Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, a pussy because he wept and felt remorse for his victims.
Jeez. So is this guy still alive?
No.
Okay.
He's not, and here's how. He somehow snuck a razor blade into his holding cell and sliced his own throat.
Or somebody else did it.
Which could be possible, too.
I mean, people that commit crimes is atrocious. I mean, look at Jeffrey Dahmer.
Uh-huh.
Killed by a cellmate.
Yep.
That's what
forget there was another guy that was killed at the same time by the same guy.
Right.
Killed with a weighted dumbbell.
Yeah.
Smashed both their heads.
At that point, it's probably like, I'm getting life for killing this guy. I'm already serving life. What's 2 more life sentences?
The dude didn't care. He was paraded around like a he was the king of the day.
Cock of the walk.
Yes. So that was Israel Keys, which had kill buckets around the country, and made like wagon train style treks to get to victims. And then there's Robert Hansen, who would fly his victims out into the middle of nowhere and then hunt them like they were for sport.
Right. And the weird thing is, like, mostly serial killers come from a extremely religious, dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
And so they know right from wrong, but they grew up in this dysfunctional family where they were abused or sexually or physically or whatever, emotionally, and then they turn out like this. And kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah. It's that, or they got hit in the head.
Right. Yeah, it's just so many people. Well, I'm Christian. That doesn't mean you're good.
Right.
Doing good.
I just heard the spew of bullshit that just came out of your mouth for the last 10 minutes. That's about your hatred towards everybody else but your own congregation.
Right.
That doesn't make you a good person.
No. Being a good person is just being accepting. I mean, I don't care what people believe in. Believe in what you want. Just don't push it on me. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I'm completely happy and content living the way I am.
And I tell most people, it's like, okay, there are 4 things that I don't want you to talk to me about: your politics, your religion, your sex life, and everything else about you.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Oh,
gonna take
the fourth one's actually your finances.
right because it's none of our business.
Yeah, those are there. There's nothing but content and contention, and it's all four of those things never lead to a happy conversation.
Right.
So,
No, it's somebody's getting mad one way or another.
yeah,
Even if you're talking to somebody on the same political side as you, you're still gonna find something to fight about.
there's gonna be issues. Not everybody agrees 100% on everything.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, but it's when did we get away from the just having dialogue and civil conversation about it to screaming and shouting and being pissed off at each other and sometimes right going into violence?
I well, yeah, I don't know. I remember growing up that we could actually talk about who's the better all-time comic book hero, or
Right.
what was the better comic book brand, Marvel or DC. There was all these things that we could talk about, but it's like we could have these conversations and not get mad. But then somewhere along the line, it's like now you can't even talk about anything like that without
Right.
getting argumentative. I think
Right.
it's a deep seed. I blame Burger King
Okay.
because Burger King made it that you get your way right away, right now. So everybody is used to winning.
But you're not. If you go to Burger King and you order something special order, it's coming to you screwed up.
Well, true, but Burger King gave you that false sense of hope.
Yeah.
And you know what? Hope is a pipe. Hope is
Right.
something they tell you not to embrace or remember or even want when you're in prison.
Right. So with that positive image. So today we talked about Portlock, Alaska. We talked about Israel Keys and who was the other guy?
Robert Hansen.
Robert Hansen. Alaska is a beautiful, spooky place.
Yes. It's full of hairy creatures that I didn't know about before today, and really inventive killers.
Yep. So, with that being said, we'll wrap this up. If you guys want to hear us talk about something else, leave us a comment, send us an email, do what you got to do the
Subscribe,
thingies.
like.
Yep.
I don't even know if I'm
Share.
going to the right place. Share with friends. That's a better one. Just share it with people.
Yep. And if you don't like us, share us with your enemies.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Use this as like the new this generation's Rickroll.
Right.
We'll even sing the song if you want.
There was a mashup where they sang that song to heavy metal music, and I can't remember what it was, but he actually did
Oh, nice.
it. I want to say it was the Foo Fighters. I mean, not that they're like heavy metal, but they're considered metal.
Right.
But yeah. Anywho, so with that being said, we'll wrap this up, and we will talk to you guys in about a week or maybe 2, maybe 3. Who knows? Peace out. Love you guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.